December 1944, Hurtgen Forest, Germany. 17 American soldiers dead in 72 hours. Killed by invisible German snipers who vanished like smoke. Standard camouflage failed. Observation posts became coffins. Command had no answers. Then Sergeant Jack Mercer sketched something in frozen mud that made officers laugh. A fake tree trunk, portable, painted to match forest wreckage. "You want to become a tree?" they mocked. 9 days later, intelligence confirmed 22 German casualties from a ghost position they never found. What made this absurd idea the deadliest weapon in the Hurtgen nightmare? The thermometer read 14 degrees Fahrenheit when Sergeant Jack Mercer's boots hit German soil on December 6, 1944. Behind him, the shattered remnants of the 28th Infantry Division stumbled through snow-covered hell that had already consumed 50,000 American lives. The Hurtgen Forest stretched 40 square miles of frozen death, ancient pines packed so tight that daylight barely penetrated, ground frozen harder than concrete, and German defenders who transformed every ridge into a killing zone. Mercer had survived Normandy. He'd walked through the Siegfried Line, but nothing prepared him for this forest that murdered differently, silently, invisibly, efficiently. "Third man this morning," Private Tommy Chen whispered, crouching beside a corpse still clutching its rifle. Single bullet hole, perfectly centered in the forehead. Never heard the shot, never saw smoke, just gone. Mercer studied the angle, calculating trajectory through skeletal branches. German sniper, elevated position, maybe 300 yards northeast. Then vanished before American spotters could triangulate. This pattern repeated across every sector. Soldiers dropping mid-sentence, medics killed treating wounded, officers eliminated the moment they revealed rank. Standard counter-sniper doctrine failed because the forest provided infinite concealment and 10,000 firing positions. By December 9th, the statistics became unbearable. 17 confirmed kills in 72 hours. Battalion Commander Lieutenant Colonel Howard Pierce convened emergency meetings in a dugout that reeked of mud and defeat. "Our camouflage is obsolete," he stated flatly, reviewing casualty reports. "German observers detect our positions within hours. Our snipers can't maintain effective hides long enough to matter. Gentlemen, they own this forest, and we're dying because of it." Mercer sat against frozen sandbags, exhaustion blurring his vision. 31 years old, farm kid from Wisconsin logging country. His father taught him to hunt whitetail in forests, not unlike this one. Patience, stillness, reading the environment's rhythm. Fort Benning provided marksmanship training, but it couldn't replicate the psychological weight of being hunted. Every exposed moment invited death. Every movement risked detection. Standard solutions, camouflage nets, concealed rifle pits, had proven catastrophically inadequate because German spotters systematically swept known firing lanes with premium Zeiss optics, identifying anything that didn't belong to the forest's natural chaos. The idea emerged not from brilliance, but desperate observation. During a pre-dawn patrol on December 10th, Mercer watched German artillery obliterate a church tower that American spotters briefly occupied. The enemy waited patiently, tracked the position, then eliminated it with overwhelming firepower. Afterward, the forest returned to eerie silence. Shattered trees, scattered equipment, snow slowly covering carnage. Mercer noticed how naturally destroyed trunks blended into devastation. Splintered oaks stood ignored because they were expected. Nobody wasted attention scanning wreckage that had existed for weeks. Dead trees were invisible precisely because they were everywhere. He sketched the concept in frozen mud, a portable cylinder constructed from salvaged wood and canvas, painted to match fire-damaged bark, large enough for prone shooter and observer, weighted with sandbags for stability. Interior would contain rifle, ammunition, binoculars, rations and waste bags for extended deployment. Ventilation slits disguised as natural bark splits would prevent breath condensation from revealing position. Most critically, the structure would relocate every 48 hours, preventing pattern recognition that doomed static observation posts. Lieutenant Pierce studied the sketch with barely concealed skepticism. "You want to build a fake tree? Mercer, we're fighting the Wehrmacht, not playing children's games." Other officers laughed, exhaustion sharpening their ridicule. Captain Robert McNally called it theatrical nonsense that would collapse under professional scrutiny. German spotters use systematic grid scanning and the finest optics in the world. They'll identify artificial structures immediately. Consensus dismissed the proposal as desperation fantasy, interesting theoretically, worthless practically. Command approved standard operations instead: more patrols, improved camouflage nets, aggressive suppression fire. Within 24 hours, 3 more Americans died from invisible rifles. Mercer couldn't accept defeat. Late December 11th, he approached Private Danny Wilson, a 19-year-old carpenter from Detroit who worked construction before Pearl Harbor changed everything. Wilson possessed hands that shaped wood with precision, even wearing gloves, maintained optimism despite surrounding carnage, and understood that conventional thinking was killing them. Together they scavenged materials from destroyed positions, splintered oak planks, torn canvas from abandoned tents, metal brackets from wrecked equipment, sandbags nobody would miss. They worked in a collapsed barn behind lines, using battery lanterns and hand tools, assembling the framework during off-duty hours while exhausted soldiers slept. The structure took 3 nights, cylinder 6 feet tall, 3 feet diameter, designed for prone shooter lying at angle, maximizing firing lanes while maintaining concealment. Wilson reinforced the base with salvaged metal, ensuring stability on uneven ground. Mercer painted exterior using mud, ash, and scavenged pigments, studying photographs of damaged trees to replicate fire-scarred bark texture. They drilled ventilation slits matching natural wood splits, testing sightlines to ensure 360-degree observation without revealing movement. Final weight, 80 pounds, heavy enough to resist wind, light enough for 2 men to transport under darkness. December 14th, they presented the completed prototype. In morning light, it looked absurd, obviously artificial, theatrical, exactly as predicted. Officers gathered offering sarcastic compliments about Mercer's tree costume and suggestions to add Christmas decorations. But Pierce studied the design seriously, walking around the cylinder, examining paint texture, testing stability, checking sight lines. Finally, he nodded slowly. "The forest is full of damaged trees. One more won't attract attention unless it fails spectacularly. But Mercer, if you die hiding in a wooden tube, I'm writing your mother that stubbornness killed you." Mercer accepted those terms. That night, under moonless darkness, he and Wilson carried the tree trunk hide 400 yards into no man's land, positioning it among genuine wreckage where American artillery had shattered enemy positions weeks earlier. They placed the cylinder beside an authentically destroyed oak, creating impression of connected devastation. Inside, Mercer settled prone, M9903 Springfield rifle resting on padded support, binoculars scanning pre-dawn darkness. Wilson remained as observer, tracking movement, recording data. Temperature dropped to 9 degrees. Hours passed in absolute silence. Then dawn broke December 15th, 1944. The forest began moving, and Sergeant Jack Mercer prepared to demonstrate what ridiculous ideas accomplished when desperation met determination. Morning mist clung to frozen ground as German infantry began predictable rotation patterns. Sergeant Mercer's breath formed tiny clouds inside the tree trunk hide, each exhalation carefully controlled to minimize condensation. Private Wilson pressed against his shoulder, whispering coordinates as figures moved through grey dawn, 300 yards northeast. 2 o'clock, range 285, moving left. Mercer tracked through his scope, watching enemy soldiers navigate trails they'd used for weeks, comfortable in dominance. Confident American observation remained blind. That confidence was about to cost lives. First target appeared 06:47 hours. German Unteroffizier carrying map case and binoculars, clearly officer conducting morning reconnaissance. Standard doctrine prohibited firing until multiple targets presented, but Mercer understood psychological warfare. One impossible shot would be dismissed as luck. A pattern would create terror. He steadied breathing, calculated windage for icy crosswind, squeezed trigger. The Springfield cracked through frozen air. 300 yards away, the officer collapsed instantly. Killed so quickly his men took 7 seconds comprehending what happened. By then, Mercer had cycled the bolt and settled into absolute stillness. Chaos erupted. Soldiers dove for cover, shouting warnings, scanning desperately for shot origin. Officers barked orders, directing attention toward known American lines 400 yards southwest, exactly where Mercer expected. Nobody looked at destroyed tree trunks sitting in plain sight amid old devastation. Mercer and Wilson remained frozen, breathing slowly, watching through ventilation slits as German squads organized response patterns. For 90 minutes, enemy soldiers searched empty forest, frustration visible even at distance. Finally, they withdrew, dragging their dead officer, convinced Americans achieved lucky shot from extreme range. Psychological impact exceeded expectations. German patrols became cautious, movements less predictable, soldiers constantly scanning for threats they couldn't identify. But operational patterns remained. Supply runs at dawn, position rotations every 6 hours, officer inspections following consistent routes. Mercer documented everything, creating detailed maps of enemy activity, noting which trails received most traffic, identifying leadership personnel by uniform quality and behavior. This intelligence proved as valuable as kills because it revealed German operational rhythm in sectors where American understanding had been minimal. December 16th brought second engagement. At 14:15 hours, German supply detail moved through ravine carrying ammunition crates, medical supplies, rations. 6 men relaxed despite yesterday's casualty, talking loud enough that Mercer heard fragments through frozen air. Wilson tracked them through binoculars, confirming no additional forces nearby. Mercer waited until they reached the ravine's narrowest point, where retreat required crossing open ground. Springfield fired twice in 4 seconds. Supply sergeant collapsed with chest wound. Lead soldier dropped with headshot. Remaining Germans scattered, abandoning supplies, fleeing toward prepared positions. Enemy response arrived within minutes. Mortar fire saturating approximate firing line, deliberately targeting known American observation areas. The tree trunk hide, sitting 200 yards off that line, remained untouched. Snow began falling, covering tracks, obscuring sightlines, making detection even more difficult. Night operations proved impossible. Winter darkness lasted 14 hours. Temperatures plunged below zero. German positions remained invisible. Mercer and Wilson used these hours for rest, rationing food, plotting next day's strategy. They rotated sleeping shifts, 2 hours unconscious while the other maintained vigilance, watching for patrols that might accidentally discover their position. The trunk's interior provided minimal protection against cold, but they stuffed gaps with torn uniforms, used combined body heat for survival. By morning, frost covered inside walls, breath frozen into crystals on canvas, both men moving stiffly, fighting early hypothermia. But the hide remained undetected. December 17th through 19th established the pattern that would define what American intelligence unofficially named Operation Ghost Tree. Mercer averaged 3 confirmed kills daily, targeting officers, communication personnel, soldiers whose positions revealed tactical information. Each shot followed meticulous calculation, range, windage, trajectory, escape routes, potential collateral intelligence. Wilson documented German responses, noting how enemy forces adjusted patrol patterns, how officers became increasingly paranoid, how entire squads refused using trails previously routine. Germans began calling it Geistbaum after discovering third officer's body December 18th. According to intercepted radio communications, enemy commanders believed they faced supernatural phenomenon, ghost inhabiting forest, killing without sound or trace, impossible to locate or counter. Rational officers argued for systematic grid sweeps, but forest density and American artillery superiority made such operations suicidal. Instead, German forces adopted defensive postures, limiting movement, avoiding exposure, accepting certain areas had become death zones they couldn't control. By December 20th, Mercer's confirmed count reached 14. Battalion Command received detailed intelligence reports with astonishment. Lieutenant Colonel Pierce personally visited forward positions, verifying that single two-man team, operating from fake tree trunk, achieved what entire sniper platoons couldn't accomplish. Success prompted immediate planning for additional hides, with Wilson working overtime, constructing duplicates, using refined techniques. But Mercer understood operations' shelf life. German frustration would eventually overcome caution, forcing systematic searches, discovering the hide regardless of camouflage quality. December 21st brought most dangerous engagement. At 8:30 hours, German patrol moved directly toward Tree Trunk Hide. 8 soldiers conducting deliberate terrain sweeps, probing every suspicious feature. They approached within 50 yards. Close enough Mercer heard conversation, smelled cigarette smoke, watched nervous fingers gripping rifles. Wilson pressed against him, both frozen absolutely still, hearts pounding, knowing any movement or sound meant death. Patrol leader studied tree trunk for agonizing seconds, rifle aimed at ventilation slits, clearly suspicious. Then radio call redirected them. American forces attacking 2 kilometers south, requiring immediate reinforcement. Germans departed double time, leaving Mercer and Wilson alive through operational luck. That night they relocated Hyde 300 yards northwest, choosing new position amid artillery-damaged pines, offering superior firing lanes and concealment. Move required 4 hours exhausting labor in sub-zero darkness, navigating frozen ground while carrying 80 pounds equipment, erasing tracks, establishing new position before dawn. By morning, they were operational again, watching German soldiers search old position with systematic thoroughness, confirming Mercer's instinct that discovery had been imminent. December 22nd through 23rd added 6 confirmed kills, bringing total to 20. Each engagement refined technique. Mercer learned identifying high-value targets by subtle behavioral cues. Wilson developed predictive models for German patrol timing, both adapted to conditions that would have killed less determined soldiers. They consumed cold rations, managed waste in sealed containers, endured physical deterioration leaving them gaunt, frost-damaged, running on determination, refusing defeat. Christmas Eve, the forest fell silent. German forces withdrew to defensive positions. American artillery ceased. Informal truces emerged as exhausted soldiers. Both sides acknowledged the holiday. Mercer and Wilson maintained vigilance, but fired no shots, watching enemy soldiers share cigarettes, sing carols, briefly forget war's brutality. That night they whispered about home. Wilson described Detroit Christmas traditions. Mercer remembered Wisconsin farm celebrations, both understanding they might never experience those moments again. December 25th shattered peace. At 11:35 hours, German counteroffensive struck American lines with desperate fury. Enemy infantry, supported by remaining armor, pushed through sectors intelligence considered secure. Mercer shifted targets from individuals to tactical priorities, machine gun crews, mortar teams, officers coordinating assaults. Springfield fired until barrel grew too hot touching, Wilson calling ranges faster than Mercer could cycle bolts, both operating beyond exhaustion because failure meant defensive line collapsed. Final two kills came 1847 hours, December 25th, as darkness fell and German forces withdrew after suffering catastrophic casualties. Rearguard officer attempted organizing retreat while radio operator transmitted final status reports. Mercer's shots dropped both within 3 seconds, silencing communication that might have allowed Germans regrouping effectively. Total confirmed kills: 22 enemy soldiers eliminated over 9 days continuous operation under conditions that should have been impossible. German High Command received first Geistbaum reports December 18, 1944, when casualties from Hürtgen sector began showing patterns violating tactical logic. Hauptmann Klaus Richter, intelligence officer for 275th Infantry Division, compiled data that should have been impossible. 14 confirmed sniper kills over 4 days, all from firing positions, systematic sweeps, failed identifying, all targeting high-value personnel, with precision suggesting intelligence access beyond American capability. His superiors dismissed initial reports as exaggeration, nervous soldiers inventing explanations for their failures. But casualties continued accumulating, each death photographed, documented, analyzed, according to Wehrmacht investigative protocols established after catastrophic sniper losses on Eastern Front. Americans cannot achieve this consistency, Richter insisted during heated staff meeting December 20th. His map showed 22 red pins marking confirmed kill locations, scattered across terrain his division controlled absolutely. Our patrols execute grid searches. Our observers scan known firing lines continuously. Our doctrine is superior. We literally wrote the manual on forest warfare these farm boys are reading. His frustration reflected deeper institutional arrogance. German military tradition assumed technological and tactical superiority, particularly regarding marksmanship and fieldcraft. American soldiers were considered brave, but unsophisticated, lacking discipline and training, producing elite Wehrmacht performance. Hürtgen Forest was supposed to validate that assumption, bleeding American divisions against prepared defenses while German forces conserved strength for inevitable counteroffensives. The sniper phenomenon contradicted comfortable narrative. Richter interrogated survivors witnessing impossible kills. "We saw nothing. Shot came from empty forest. Our spotters detected no muzzle flash, no scope reflection, no movement afterward. It's as if trees themselves are shooting." Such descriptions prompted medical officers evaluating soldiers for combat fatigue, but physical evidence supported accounts. Ballistic analysis confirmed shots originated from positions German forces had cleared hours earlier. Trajectory calculations indicated firing points amid destroyed terrain, offering no concealment for human operators. Most disturbing, multiple witnesses reported examining specific areas immediately after shots, finding nothing: no boot prints, no shell casings, no disturbance suggesting recent human presence. German doctrine provided no framework for this problem. Standard counter-sniper protocols assumed rational positioning, elevated observation posts, concealed firing lanes, predictable escape routes. Wehrmacht training emphasized aggressive patrol saturation, flushing enemy shooters from hiding, followed by overwhelming suppression fire eliminating threats. These methods proven effective against Soviet snipers during brutal Eastern Front campaigns, where German forces learned respecting Russian marksmanship but ultimately countered through systematic tactics. Americans should have been easier opponents. Their sniper programs were newer, less refined, constrained by industrial military culture, prioritizing mass production over individual excellence. Yet here they were, suffering casualties from enemy they couldn't locate. Officers who should coordinate operations instead obsessed about invisible threats. Soldiers refused patrol assignments through death zones. Morale degraded as men realized training didn't protect them. Richter proposed radical countermeasures: cease unnecessary movement, conduct patrols only under artillery cover, abandon exposed positions, accept defensive postures until American offensive pressure forced their sniper revealing himself through operational necessity. His superiors rejected this as defeatist, insisting yielding initiative to Americans would encourage further aggression. December 22nd, General Major Hans Schmidt visited sector personally, determined restoring order through command presence. 53 years old, veteran both World Wars, awarded Iron Cross for Eastern Front service, convinced discipline solved all military problems. He inspected forward positions with theatrical confidence, deliberately exposing himself, proving fear was irrational. Richter accompanied reluctantly, scanning forest with binoculars, counting minutes until disaster. Schmidt lectured soldiers about German military superiority, mocked American tactical incompetence, insisted sniper deaths resulted from insufficient vigilance rather than enemy capability. Inspection lasted 90 minutes before American artillery interrupted with devastating accuracy, suggesting forward observers tracked Schmidt's movement and called fire support. General survived only because his aide tackled him into dugout seconds before explosions obliterated position. Afterward, covered mud and shaken, Schmidt authorized Richter's defensive protocols without further argument. German forces in sector adopted bunker mentalities, minimizing exposure, treating forest as hostile territory controlled by enemy they couldn't fight conventionally. Intelligence intercepts revealed American awareness of German demoralization. Radio operators reported hearing enemy communications describing Geistbaum in supernatural terms, acknowledging inability countering threat, requesting reinforcements from units that couldn't be spared. This psychological victory proved as valuable as tactical kills because it paralyzed German operational flexibility across terrain, where American offensive operations had previously stalled. Forests supposed to bleed Americans dry had become nightmare for its defenders. Richter never solved mystery during active operations. His after-action reports, recovered by American forces January 1945, described systematic failures. We searched terrain repeatedly. We found nothing. Either Americans developed technology beyond our current understanding, or single operator achieved through determination what our doctrine deemed impossible. Both conclusions professionally unacceptable, yet evidence supports no alternative. His honesty was commendable but irrelevant. By time reports reached higher command, American forces had broken through Hürtgen Forest, and German defensive lines were collapsing. Philosophical divide became clear only retrospectively. German military culture valued systematic doctrine, hierarchical command structures, technological superiority. Innovation occurred through institutional channels, after extensive testing and approval. Individual initiative was respected, but constrained by operational frameworks designed preventing chaos. This approach produced remarkable military efficiency, but also created rigidity confronting unexpected challenges. American military culture embraced pragmatic improvisation. Soldiers like Sergeant Mercer operated within disciplinary structures but retained authority, proposing unconventional solutions when conventional methods failed. Officers like Lieutenant Colonel Pierce risked careers authorizing experimental operations based on incomplete information and desperate necessity. This flexibility reflected national character, optimism that problems could be solved through ingenuity, confidence that ordinary citizens possessed capabilities formal training couldn't predict, willingness trying ridiculous ideas because refusing to innovate meant accepting defeat. Tree Trunk Hyde succeeded not because it represented sophisticated technology, but because it exploited cognitive blind spots in German operational thinking. Enemy observers scanned for threats matching doctrinal patterns, camouflage nets, observation posts, sniper positions conforming to established tactical theory. They didn't waste attention on wreckage existing for weeks, destroyed trees blending into devastated landscape, or static features violating assumptions about how Americans operated. Mercer understood this instinctively. He didn't need advanced training, recognizing that becoming part of environment was more effective than hiding within it. December 25th crystallized this contrast when German forces launched final counteroffensive. Their assault followed textbook doctrine: artillery preparation, infantry advance under covering fire, armor support where terrain permitted, reserve forces positioned for exploitation. Professionally executed, tactically sound, and predictable enough that American defenders, informed by Mercer's intelligence reports, had prepared ambush positions, turning attack into slaughter. German commanders couldn't adapt quickly enough because their system didn't reward improvisation under fire. Officers waited orders from headquarters arriving too late. Soldiers executed predetermined plans, even when circumstances changed. Doctrinal rigidity prevented flexibility, required countering enemy making tactical decisions in real time. Stars and Stripes published Sergeant Jack Mercer's story, February 12, 1945, under headline, "Wisconsin Farm Boy's Tree Trunk Trick Terrorizes Germans." Article combined battlefield reporting with human interest, describing how ridiculous idea eliminated 22 enemy soldiers and provided tactical intelligence contributing to Allied breakthrough operations in Hurtgen Forest. Photographs showed original tree trunk hide, now preserved at division headquarters, alongside portraits of Mercer and Wilson receiving commendations from Lieutenant Colonel Pierce. American press coverage emphasized themes resonating with home front audiences: ordinary citizen soldiers defeating professional German military through ingenuity, determination, and refusal accepting defeat. Immediate military impact extended beyond symbolic victory. Army Ordnance Department engineers studied tree trunk design, documenting construction techniques, camouflage methods, operational protocols. By March 1945, 17 additional units were produced and deployed across European theater sectors, where conventional counter-sniper operations had proven inadequate. Results varied. Some positions achieved similar success, others were detected quickly, but concepts validation encouraged broader cultural shift within American military doctrine. Innovation proposals from enlisted personnel received serious consideration rather than automatic dismissal. Experimental tactics were authorized more readily, and institutional culture began recognizing desperate circumstances often produced breakthrough solutions peacetime planning couldn't anticipate. Sergeant Mercer recovered from frostbite and malnutrition at Field Hospital near Liège, Belgium, spending 6 weeks in treatment while feet healed and doctors addressed vitamin deficiencies nearly killing him. He refused evacuation to England, insisting on returning combat duty, driven by survivor's guilt over comrades who hadn't made it through Hurtgen meat grinder. Medical officers eventually cleared him for limited duty, assigning training roles where combat experience could educate replacement soldiers arriving daily, filling casualties that had decimated veteran divisions. He taught camouflage techniques, fieldcraft, tactical thinking to teenagers from Iowa and California who looked at him with reverence, usually reserved for movie stars. Private First Class Danny Wilson received similar assignments after recovering from pneumonia contracted during Ghost Tree operation. His carpentry skills proved invaluable constructing training models and adapting tree trunk concept for different terrain types. He worked 18-hour days, driven by knowledge. His innovations directly impacted survival rates for soldiers heading into combat. Letters from men he trained, thanking him for lessons saving their lives, accumulated in his footlocker, testimonials to value of practical knowledge over abstract tactical theory. War ended May 8, 1945, with German surrender vindicating every sacrifice made in Hurtgen Forest and across European battlefields where American forces bled for liberation. Mercer stood in formation at battalion's final assembly, listening to speeches about victory and freedom, feeling profound disconnection between rhetorical triumph and memories of friends whose bodies still lay beneath forest soil. Victory was real, hard-won, purchased with blood statistics couldn't capture. He understood intellectually the war had been necessary, defeating fascism justified cost, but emotionally he remained trapped in frozen forests where death waited behind every tree. Homecoming proved difficult. Mercer returned to Wisconsin, July 1945, receiving hero's welcome from small farming community that followed his story through newspaper coverage. But civilian life felt alien after years of survival focus, and conversations with people who hadn't experienced combat opened gulfs of understanding neither side could bridge. He worked family farm, married high school sweetheart, raised 3 children while carrying memories that never fully faded. Nightmares persisted for decades. Visions of German soldiers falling through scope, sounds of artillery waking him screaming, guilt over surviving when better men hadn't. Wilson returned to Detroit's construction industry, applying military skills to post-war building boom, transforming American cities. He prospered materially, establishing successful contracting company, but struggled psychologically with reintegration into society, seeming obliviously comfortable after years' wartime sacrifice. He attended veteran gatherings religiously, finding connection with men who shared experiences civilians couldn't comprehend. His workshop contained replica tree trunk hide, never displayed publicly, that he occasionally retreated to when memories became overwhelming. Sitting inside cramped space, remembering conversations with Mercer, honoring sacrifices commercial success couldn't diminish. Ghost Tree itself became minor legend within military sniper communities, studied in training courses as case study of innovative tactics under adverse conditions. Original hide-toured Army facilities before permanent installation at Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia, where it remained on display alongside other significant artifacts from America's military history. Plaques described operational context, Mercer's achievement, broader lessons about value of unconventional thinking. Generations of soldiers examined painted wood and canvas, struggling reconciling crude construction with documented battlefield effectiveness, learning that technology didn't guarantee victory. Human determination did. Declassified German documents, released in 1970s, provided fascinating counterpoint to American accounts. Hauptmann Richter's after-action reports described institutional failure, countering what he termed American pragmatic improvisation. Acknowledging German doctrinal rigidity had prevented effective response to unconventional threats. His analysis became required, reading at professional military education institutions, illustrating how cognitive bias and institutional arrogance created vulnerabilities determined enemies could exploit. Irony wasn't lost on historians. German military professionalism, long considered world-class, had been defeated partly by refusal imagining amateurs might innovate successfully. Academic researchers examined ghost tree phenomenon through multiple analytical frameworks. Military historians studied tactical innovation under pressure. Organizational theorists explored how desperate circumstances enabled unconventional solutions, bypassing institutional resistance. Psychologists analyzed cognitive biases, making German forces blind to camouflage hiding in plain sight. Mercer's achievement transcended individual heroism, representing broader truth about human capacity solving impossible problems when survival demanded innovation and institutions permitted experimentation. In 1984, age 71, Mercer returned to Hurtgen Forest for first time since 1945. German and American veterans organizations organized memorial ceremony honoring soldiers from both sides who fought and died in brutal campaign. He walked terrain that had been devastated wasteland, now reforested and peaceful, struggling reconciling memory with present reality. German veterans approached respectfully, acknowledging tactical achievement, asking questions about techniques confounding their forces. These conversations, initially awkward, evolved into genuine connection between old soldiers recognizing shared humanity beneath historical enmity. At memorial ceremony, Mercer delivered brief remarks, later quoted in historical documentaries. "We did terrible things to each other in this forest. We killed and died and suffered in ways civilians can't understand. But we also proved something about human capacity transcending politics and patriotism. When everything conventional fails, when doctrine doesn't work and commanders have no answers, ordinary people can innovate solutions experts never imagined." That's what Ghost Tree represented. Not superior American tactics or technology, but refusal, accepting survival required following rules written by people who weren't dying. I wish we'd never needed learning that lesson. But since we did, I hope future generations remember desperation and determination can accomplish what comfortable planning cannot. His words captured essential truth about Tree Trunk Hyde's legacy. Innovation hadn't revolutionized warfare. Modern military forces didn't adopt fake trees as standard equipment, but it validated principle that institutional culture must permit unconventional thinking. Desperate circumstances often produce breakthrough solutions, and determination combined with creativity could overcome advantages conventional analysis deemed insurmountable. These lessons resonated far beyond military contexts, influencing business strategy, organizational management, technological innovation throughout late 20th century. Mercer died 1992, age 79, surrounded by family who heard his stories countless times but never fully grasped their significance. Wilson died 3 years later, having maintained lifelong friendship with man whose ridiculous idea saved both their lives and influenced military doctrine for generations. Their obituaries appeared in major newspapers, celebrating achievements seeming foolish until proven effective, honoring ordinary Americans accomplishing extraordinary things because refusing to try meant accepting death. Ghost Tree remains on display at Infantry Museum, visited annually by thousands of soldiers, students, tourists who examine crude construction and struggle understanding how something so simple proved so effective. Modern military forces employ sophisticated camouflage technology, thermal imaging detection, counter-sniper systems that would have seemed miraculous in 1944. But they still study Mercer's achievement because fundamental lessons transcend technological advancement. Innovation emerges from necessity. Determination matters more than resources, and sometimes most ridiculous idea becomes most effective solution precisely because nobody expects it to work. In end, Ghost Tree represented America's greatest strategic advantage, not industrial capacity or technological superiority, but cultural willingness, trying ridiculous ideas because comfortable orthodoxy meant death. The Ghost Tree proves history's greatest victories come from unexpected places, ordinary people refusing defeat. If you found this story of innovation and determination compelling, hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you never miss hidden chapters of World War II history. Drop a comment below. What would you have done in Mercer's position? Which forgotten W2 story should we explore next? Share this video with anyone who appreciates how courage and creativity changed history.